guys. Don and Yim, are you folks here? Yim is here. Don? Okay. I think we'll just get started. Welcome back, everyone. We're on item number 9, 92 Donlands Avenue. Before us, we have a copy of the plan of survey, site plan, floor plans, and elevations. We have photos from the agent dated January the 5th, and a cover letter from the agent similarly dated January 5th. We have staff reports from transportation, although I don't believe that those contain any conditions. We have correspondence and support from 102 Donlands Avenue. We have correspondence of concern from 3 from 96 Donlands, and another with no address provided. So, we, is the agent David Engelman on the line?
Yes, sir, Chair, I'm here.
Okay, if you could introduce yourself and your address, please.
Yes, through you, Mr. Chair, my name is David Eagleman, and I'm a planner at Design Plan Services here on behalf of the owner.
Do we have anyone registered to speak in opposition?
Mr. Chair, it appears that we only have somebody registered in support.
Okay, we do have a registered speaker in support, but I wouldn't mind just a very quick overview of your application, sir.
Yes, so through you, Mr. Chair, good morning, and good morning, fellow committee members. As I mentioned, my name is David Eagleman, and I'm a planner at Design Plan Services. I would just like to note that Transportation Services have no concern with the proposal, as noted within their report issued for this application, dated January 5th, 2022. Additionally, it is my understanding that the owner has held discussions with some surrounding neighbors, and as a result, 2 letters in support of this application have been submitted to the committee. I would also like to note that the existing built form on the subject property today is being maintained through this application. The proposal is essentially just to permit a secondary suite within the existing basement, as well as the new front parking pad. The front basement walkout is also an existing condition and was constructed with the full benefit of a building permit. So that is my brief presentation. If the committee has any questions, I would be happy to answer any questions at this time.
Carl?
Mr. Chairman, just to clarify, the Transportation Services memo doesn't exactly say they support all aspects of the application. It says as follows: they do not object to the application with the exception of the front yard parking space. And then they clarify that you must apply separately for the parking space since it's located on the municipal boulevard, and a curb cut will only be permitted if parking is approved. So that's slightly different than was suggested by the applicant.
If I could respond to that, Mr. Chair?
Please do.
So through you, Mr. Chair, I will note that the Transportation Services, by expressing no explicit concerns with the application, they are stating that there are no concerns with the application, and the permit for the front parking pad is a separate process that has to be applied for by the owner. And if that permit is not issued by permit and enforcement from the parking division, then that front parking pad would have to be removed from the proposal. So that will be dealt with through a separate permit application process, similar to when an applicant is required to obtain permits from urban forestry.
Okay, thank you. Any further questions? You mentioned oh, sorry, Yim, go ahead.
Oh, my question is foreign cars. So if the permit is denied, then will you have efficiency in parking requirement?
Through you, Mr. Chair, we do have a variance for parking provided on site. That is variance number 5, as per the public notice. And again, as noted within Transportation Services report, they have no issues with that variance. So we would be compliant with the variances that are being requested, even if that parking pad was removed from the proposal.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, that's good.
Thanks. I'm not sure I've heard fully your introductory section. So you said the walkout is already built with a building permit? Did I hear that correctly?
Yes, through you, Mr. Chair, the front basement walkout was constructed with the full benefit of a building permit.
And the secondary suite in the basement, is that to be constructed, or is that already in place?
So through you, Mr. Chair, the basement is existing, but there is no secondary suite within it currently. The proposal includes interior alterations to provide a secondary suite within that existing basement.
Okay, thank you. Okay, is there, no, the person in support is not on the line? No? Okay. Thank you very much. We can take this into committee. Any comments? Motion? Oh, Yim?
Yeah, I do not have any problem with this proposal, and I think that on the other hand, I would like to impose the transport engineering's conditions because they have some work to do if the permit is denied. And with that condition, I'd like to move for approval.
What's the condition, Yim? Is it just in?
The condition is that if they have to apply for the front pad parking, but if it's been denied, they have to restore the area into soft landscape or something like that. Isn't it?
We're just sort of thinking about how that might actually translate into some wording.
But I'm sorry, can you bring up the engineer's report? The wording is in the recommendation.
It's more process than recommendation.
Oh.
Maybe what we can do, can we not just reference Transportation's correspondence?
Oh, yeah, okay. Yeah.
Why don't we just say
So,
subject to Transportation correspondence dated, whenever that is dated?
January 12th. Yeah.
So what would the condition be, sorry?
I do not see there's a condition. There is, the chairman mentioned it's only recommendation. I'm not too sure. It's because that's the only thing, the curb cut, that if it's approved, then they will be permitted to have a curb cut. Otherwise, they will not be allowed. So I'm not too sure that is a condition or recommend.
I think what, through you, Mr. Chair, the transportation staff are saying is that the owner has to apply for a parking pad. So if that application through Transportation Services is not approved, then Transportation Services will have to enforce the removal of the curb cut.
Yeah.
So I think it's a condition. Then they have to apply for permit for the front yard parking pad.
But the variance is for 0 parking on the property. That's the variance before committee.
Right.
I understand, but the drawings are showing a parking space in the front door on the site plan.
Which requires a parking pad, which is regulated under the municipal code through transportation.
Would it be fair to pick up on Yim's point? Could we say that curb cut illustrated on the site plan is only permitted if a subsequent approval is granted for a parking pad. I think that's the point she's trying to make, that the site plan would have to change if the parking pad isn't approved. And that's sort of what the last line of the recommendation from transportation says, so that would it be inappropriate to say that the curb cut noted on the site plan is permitted only if a parking pad is subsequently approved?
And if this isn't, though, this would have to be done before someone gets a building permit. So you'd have to have the permit for the parking pad approved or denied with the filling of the curb cut.
Can I also add, Carl, I also have a concern that usually in this situation, the transportation will also requesting to restore the area to some kind of soft landscaping. In this case, it's not mentioned. What if it's not approved? So the area will become what, right?
Then doesn't that change the variances with respect to front yard landscaping? So I think we're getting a little bit too deep in on this one.
Yes, but it's still yeah.
Yeah, I think we're trying to put conditions that are presupposing certain actions happening or not happening, which is difficult. So maybe again, this as an alternative, the transportation correspondence is on file. It directs a certain process. If we just reference the decision or that correspondence in our decision, that may provide enough of a path to deal with the issue that you're concerned about.
What about adding the phrase that to the satisfaction of the transportation services, if it's denied?
I think, Jim, that we're, like Larry says, we're going too far. We're asked to approve a variance that says no parking. I think that's what we do. If subsequently the applicant gets permission from transportation to put in a parking spot, then that's what he'll do. He's got the letter. I don't think we have to reference it at all.
Okay.
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 I mean,
So whose motion? Let's get back to the motion. Who's Peter?
No, sorry to belabor this, but just before getting to the motion, on the site plan and on street view looking at it, there's a pole, a telephone pole, immediately in front of where the curb cut is being proposed. And I don't see the parking space being able to move anymore to the other side because of the existing stairs. So maybe this is something that just gets covered in transportation's review of it, but I think it's a significant thing. And personally, I don't think that adding a front yard parking space is a real benefit to the street. It's a benefit to the owner, but not to the street. And sure, there are a couple aside, but it's not really a common occurrence.
Okay. Any further thoughts or comments on this one?
That's a good point. So, Peter, so in that case, maybe they will have a chance of not getting the permit anyway. So we just ignore that, as Dawn suggested, that they will have to go down the process of getting rejected.
I guess so, but I mean, my only concern with that then is that we've approved the kind of negligent front yard soft landscaping variance, and then that would be allowed to be insufficient, even if the parking space were refused.
Through you, Mr. Chair, the site plan does show that it's a proposed curb cut, so you'd have to still go to right-of-way management to get that anyway. So it's in the purview of transportation services, the whole thing.
Thank you. All right, so we're back, I think, to motion. Yim, did you start this one?
No, it's only a suggestion, but then Peter's point is really valid in terms of the amount of landscaping that will be affected if we take away the front yard parking. And maybe we can refuse the landscape, a soft landscape in the front yard at the same time.
But I don't know if we necessarily, so variance number 3 requires 100%, in this case it's 60, without a parking pad. So if, as Peter says, you go to Google Street View and you look, there doesn't appear to be much option to increase landscaping from the 60 that it currently has.
But this is landscaping, not soft landscaping. So a parking pad may be landscaping.
No. I think we've discussed this before with Parks and Recreation. They do not accept, and historically we've not been able to convince anybody that any kind of paving is soft landscaping. Soft landscaping has to be something vegetative that's growing. I think Peter
That's what I'm
raised.
saying. Carl,
Pardon?
I'm
Yeah.
saying, I don't think I thought this was just 100% landscape, not soft landscape.
Don,
Oh,
but
you're
then
right.
in variance 4 though, that's the soft landscape. Landscaped open space, I think is soft landscaping, so that's 25 versus 75.
Yeah.
So I would just reiterate, just looking at the photos, and I don't know how you'd get more than what is there now if there wasn't a parking pad. So,
Is the 25% what you get with the parking pad?
That's my understanding.
Okay, so then the point that you raised, Peter, that I'm inclined to agree with you on is, then if there isn't a parking pad, if the area remains paved, then it's just inviting somebody to illegally park. And basically, the paving should go and it should be replaced with soft landscaping, but I don't know how we could accommodate that. In a subsequent application that's before us today, the recommendation, and I think that's what Yim was referring to, the recommendation in a subsequent application, and perhaps it's not exactly the same, is that the parking pad has to be reconfigured to soft landscaping. It's slightly different conditions, but I'd be concerned if down the road he doesn't get the parking pad and he's got this big paved area in his front yard that's just inviting somebody to use it as a parking pad, even though the parking pad wasn't approved.
Agreed. I think it's a bit tricky, and I don't know if we could include a condition saying that if a parking pad is not approved by transportation, that the area that was proposed as a parking pad is required to be soft landscape. But I don't know what those percentages would be.
I think we can impose that. I think that will make me supporting the application with that condition. And it's very clear, if they do not get it, we do not want it paved. I mean, I think it's reasonable condition.
But then the variance changes. I think that's Peter's point.
Yeah.
We don't have a number for the
Exactly.
variance. There's two variance numbers, one if it's a parking pad and one if it isn't a parking pad.
okay.
But it's no harm of giving them the variance, I guess, because if it's restored in soft landscape, they will be above the requirement, I think, or meeting the requirement. And
Okay, what's the pleasure of the panel? I need a motion.
Oh, I can give it a try. I will like to move for approval with a condition that the applicants are required to apply for front yard parking. In the case it's been in denial, the paved area proposed for the parking area will be replaced by soft landscaping.
Okay. Have we got that? Okay, we have that. A seconder? Peter seconds. All in favor?
I just wanted to say before we vote on it, I don't think we should say that he's required to apply for a parking permit. Say if he applies for a parking permit.
Okay,
Okay,
good. Yeah.
as amended? All in favor?
Yep.
Approved with that condition. Thank you. Number 10 is withdrawn. We move to item number 11, 95 Hollam Street. And before us, we have a copy of plan, of survey, site plan, floor plans, elevations. We have some supporting material from the applicant received January 5th. We have 2 letters in support by owners and occupants of 3395 Delaware and 88, 92, 98, 99 Hollam Street. And another letter from 355, 493, 502, 497 Concord Avenue, 968, 987 Dover Court Road, 27 and 86 Hollam Street, received on January 5th. Do we have the agent online? Ms. Rodriguez?
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair.
Good afternoon.
My name is Lina Rodriguez, and my address is 504 Perth Avenue.
Great. Do we have someone registered to speak on this?
Mr. Chair, we do have somebody registered to speak in opposition to this item, but it doesn't seem they're with us. We're trying to give them a call right now, and we'll see if they do
Okay.
join.
We do have someone that I think wants to speak, so Ms. Rodriguez, if you could give us a short overview of your application, please.
Thank you. We are requesting 4 variances to develop this property at 95 Hallam Street. And the proposal is to alter the existing 2-story detached dwelling by constructing a 2-story rear addition and a complete 3rd floor addition with a 3rd floor rooftop deck and new 2nd floor front balcony, a new front porch, and a new basement walkout. The proposed addition will create the first variance, which is the floor space index to 1.03 times the area of the lot. The existing dwelling has 97.23 square meters of floor area, and the new addition will be an additional 97.79 square meters. That makes it 1.03 times the area of the lot. The first floor addition will accommodate the family room on the ground floor. The 2nd floor will have an extra bedroom, a bath, and laundry. And the 3rd floor will be the master's bedroom with the roof deck on the other half of the, over to the rear of the house. The second variance, which is the side yard setback of the second floor balcony and the front porch, is created because it's actually the existing brick pillar of the veranda that was enclosed, and it's existing, so we're keeping that. It remains, and that pillar will just extend over to the 3rd floor to provide the structural support of the balcony and the roof over the balcony. And the 3rd variance, which is again the location of the stairs, is again the existing exact location of the stairs where we have now, and so that remains as the existing condition, site condition. And same as the fourth variance, which is the front yard landscaping, is also the same area, front yard landscaping with no changes to it. And so we kindly, we believe this is a good development and a minor, so we're kindly requesting your approval. Thank you very much.
Great. Thank you. Panel, any questions of the agent? Carl?
Just one question. I noticed, unless I've missed it, that you don't have support letters from either of the adjacent owners at 93 and 97. Can you advise us of any discussions you've had with them and whether they have any concerns?
I believe there was a letter from the 97, number 93 to there are 5 supporting letters that were submitted.
From 93? No, there's one from 87. I didn't see, if they're there, I missed them, sorry.
Yeah, number 90, the number 93 Hallam Street to the east side. Actually, the owner and the neighbor had an agreement between them that were signed through a lawyer, and they had agreed not to encroach the right of way or damage the existing fence. That's what their agreement was.
Okay, but in terms of the application before us, you didn't get, as far as I can see, you didn't get a letter of support from 93 or 97. I can't find them anywhere in the file, the material that we received.
I believe the owner told me that he had reached out to both. So one, the 93 had an agreement signed by them through a lawyer, and the other one to the west, he did speak to him, but he didn't say anything. He didn't sign the letter that we gave to him.
Okay, thank you very much. I was concerned if I'd missed it. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you. And do we have anyone online to speak?
Mr. Chair, we had Martin Kozak registered to speak in opposition to the application, but we've just heard from Martin, and they're no longer able to join us, but they are now in support of the application.
Okay, great, thank you. Okay, panel, any further questions of the agent before we go into committee? Okay, we're in committee. Comments? Peter?
Sure, I'll start off. I think this is a sizable addition to the house, but I think it's done pretty sensitively. And all along Hallam, they are quite large, the houses. And I think this fits in, and I think the way that it's being masked and stepping back, the third floor step back in the rear. And I think that it's not going significantly deeper than the neighbors. So I think it's supportable, and I'll put forward a motion for approval of the petition.
Thank you. Seconder, Don? All in favor? Oh, sorry, Carl? Did you have a point?
Could I suggest either we tie it to the elevations, or that we put a condition in that the third floor deck have screening as shown on the drawings? If you look at the east elevation, for example, there's a privacy screen around the third floor deck. I think that's a very important part of the proposal. So it is shown, but if we don't call up the plans in some way, it's not a condition. Yeah, there it is.
Yeah, that's fair.
Okay. Motion moved by Peter, seconded by Don with that condition, tying to plans. All in favor? Approved unanimously. Your application is approved, sir. Ma'am, pardon me.
That's to the 2 elevation plans.
To the 2 elevation plans, Carl?
Actually, I think you have to do all the elevation plans to show it, so I would just say the elevation plans.
Okay, thank you. We move on to item number 12, 113 Bristol Avenue.
No, that's been deferred.
Correct. Correct. Has that been deferred officially? We deferred that. Thank you,
Yep.
Don. 13, 20 Dwart Park Road. The committee has before it copy of plan of survey, site plan, floor plans, and elevations, cover letter from the agent dated December 31st. We have staff reports from Forestry and the TRCA, and we have correspondence and opposition from 7 Crown Park Road, 2 letters from 7 Crown Park Road. Do we have the agent on the line? Okay, so,
Yes, hello?
Mr. Leacher,
Yes. My name is Felix Neucher. I'm the agent for the application.
and your address, please?
26 Hazel Avenue, Toronto.
Okay, we do have some folks wanting to speak on this one, so could we ask you to do a short presentation, please?
Sure, yeah. So the proposal in front of us is for a new built 2-story house on the existing lot of 20 Dwart Park. The variances in front of you are mainly related to, at one hand, the garage, which is the reconstruction of more or less the existing garage on the existing footprint, which creates several setback variances. And on the other hand, the construction of the new building, new house, which is a 2-story house, which respects the existing setbacks, but they are substandard in compared to the bylaw. And there's an increase in floor space index to 0.89. This floor space index has been approved by the Committee of Adjustment in the close proximity several times in the recent years. So it's our belief that the variance requested are minor and fit the 4 tests, and that the proposed building fits the neighborhood and supports the existing structures on the street. We've been in contact with city planning. They didn't have any objections. The neighbors, the direct neighbors to the left and right don't have objections. TRCA doesn't have objections. And I think one of the neighbors also registered to speak in favor of this application. I
Okay,
think that's it from my side, unless you have more questions.
great, thank you very much. Panel, any questions? Nope. So we'll move then to the first speaker. Is the owner speaking? No.
No, Mr. Chair, the first person who was registered to speak, Wendy, excuse me, that's Wendy Tummers, just emailed us and said that she was going to rely on her written comments. So the next speaker we have registered is Robert Mollett.
Okay. Mr. Millett?
Robert, you've been unmuted, you can go ahead.
Hello, Mr. Millett?
Robert, you've been unmuted, you can go ahead. I'm also going to try calling the phone number that you used for your registration.
Okay, we're just going to give a quick call.
Hello. Hi, there we are.
Hello, Mr. Millett?
Yes.
Robert?
Yes.
Robert, can you?
Sorry, I just was getting an echo on the on my computer. I'm just going to turn that off. Hi.
Yeah, I wanted to.
Hello?
I'm the neighbor to the west at 18 Dwart Park.
Okay,
I also share a mutual drive with the property, which was one of the things that I thought was particularly important for the neighborhood. We are a dead-end street, and I'm at the very end. Number 20 is the second. I built my house in 2009. We had a very narrow driveway, and I took the opportunity to add. I brought my property or the house in about 18 inches from the driveway to try to create a little bit better, driveway, just access to the two garages at the rear. And I'm aware by looking at the proposal for 20 that Chris is doing the same, which is going to be pretty remarkable. We'll be able to relieve a little bit of our parking on the street because with that new driveway width that we're both supporting, we'll be able to use our garages, which is going to be quite remarkable. The other thing that I just wanted to mention, it's 2022, the design 2021. I think it's a great design. Not to be critical of our wonderful city, but I'm kind of sick of the love affair with 18th century mock Tudor everywhere, and I think it's great to have something fresh. So I like the design. It's appealing to me. I'm going to live next door to it. And I think it's reasonable to say also that the existing home, I mean, it's been derelict for 20 years. It was occupied, but honestly, we had rat problems, broken windows. I think that a new build is pretty much the only way that anyone can deal with that property. I'm a retired builder, and I looked at it just for fun, and the cost to restore it would just have been remarkable. So a new build, I think, is appropriate. And the other thing I just wanted to say, because I did read the file, with regards to concern of overview, with regards to my friend and neighbor out the back on Crown Park, at the back of 20, they have two mature oak trees, easily 30 meters in height, beautifully foliated for 8 or 9 months of the year, which certainly create a shade in the area. We all love it, all for the surrounding houses, including the house that has the objection. And I looked at the existing house and the plans for the new house, and in my estimation, the old home is taller than the new one. With that flat roof circumstance, I know the zoning bylaws changed in the last 4 or 5 years with regards to height limit for flat roof homes as opposed to traditional roof homes. So, I mean, even from a southwest sunline view, and my house is taller, by the way, I can't imagine there'll be any change, if not better, for with the new proposed building with regards to any sun concerns to the north. Anyways, I just wanted to add my voice. I'm very for the project. I think it'll be a wonderful addition to our street. And on that note as well, the applicant lives on the street now and did a significant job over the last couple of years on the house they're living in, and is very first class. I know that he has a landscape background, and I will be sharing the front view of their new property with mine, and I'm quite confident that the new landscaping is going to be great. We have a pretty tired street, so a new addition, it's only a good thing. So anyways, I just wanted to put my 2 cents in. Thank you.
great. Thank you very much. Panel, any questions of the speaker? Mr. Leisure, if I don't know if you want to necessarily respond to that, but there were a couple of letters of concern for overlook in the rear. Maybe you could just speak to that very briefly.
As mentioned, there are two major trees in the backyard of 20 Dwart Park. There are more major trees in the surrounding neighborhoods in properties, so I don't really see neither the shading problem caused by the house, it's more by the trees, which the neighbor at 7 Dwart Park mentions, and the overlook would be as soon as the foliage is up, there's no overlook happening from the proposal. And also to mention that the existing house is also a two-story house, so the situation doesn't
Great, thank you very much. Panel, we'll go into committee on this one. Any comments, Carl?
Mr. Chairman, I think the adjacent neighbor summed this up very well when he said this is a good thing. I agree. I don't see any downside to this application. It's an improvement over the existing condition. The fact that you've got two adjacent owners agreeing to provide for a wider shared driveway so they can now access rear parking garages, which I gather they were unable to access before, is commendable. I have no trouble at all in supporting this application, and unless my colleagues have concerns, I'd like to move approval subject to forestry condition number 2.
We have a
I
motion.
second that motion.
Seconded by Don.
Echo what Carl said.
Thank you. All in favor? You have your approval, sir. Thank you very much. We move on to item number 14, 56 Belmont Street. Before us, we have copy of plan of survey, site plan, floor plans, and elevations. We have email correspondence from Urban Forestry and a 3-signature petition in support from owners of 32, 60, and 60 Belmont Street. Do we have the agent on the line? Mr. Dome?
Yes, hello?
Hello, could you give us your name and your address, please?
Hi, my name is Joe Dome, 1101 Steeles Avenue West, agent for the owner.
Great, thank you. I don't think we need a presentation for this one. Panel, does anyone want a presentation? I think we're good. Mr. Dome, is there anything you'd like to share with us or add before we go into committee?
No, I had a presentation. If you don't require it, we can proceed. I just would like to point out that there were 4 letters of support as opposed to 3.
Fair enough, thank you. Okay. Panel, any comments on this application or motion? Or any questions of the agent, frankly? No? Yim?
Yes, I looked through the file. The RNFP within the department have no condition, and then there's no opposition. And so I think it's a straightforward application. I will suggest to move for approval. And I
Okay.
don't think there's any conditions.
Do we have a seconder? Peter? Seconded by Peter. All in favor? Unanimously approved, sir. You have your approval. We move to item number 15, 64 Durant Avenue. We have in front of us copy of a plan of survey, site plan, floor plans, and elevations. We have a previous decision affecting this property, and we have presentation material from the agent. There is correspondence and opposition from 62 Durant and another individual with no address provided. So do we have, okay.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair.
Good afternoon.
Happy New Year, Mr. Chair, members. Ida
you.
Evangelista.
Thank you very much,
On behalf of
Ida.
the owners
Okay.
of 64 Durant.
Thank you very much. If you could do a short presentation, please.
Absolutely. So back in May, actually on May 13, 2015, this application was in front of the committee and was known as, at that time, as an addition alteration, because more than 50% of the wall, actually 63% of the walls were going to remain. However, they were then finally able to start construction and go through the process. End of 2019, they started the demolition of the home. So while starting the demolition, and a portion, because there was previously a garage attached to this one-story bungalow, and the rear wall of the garage, along with a portion of the rear wall of the existing home, was to be removed. and they were adding on to this home, both at the rear and the second floor. So structural engineers, it was sound to do so, and they commenced. However, when they went to remove the roof, the load bearing on the roof, because there were so many layers of shingle, proved to be heavy, and that caused a good portion of the south wall to buckle and to fall. Well, now we're no longer considered an additional alteration, we're now considered a new home, and that's what brings me here today. So I do know that you did receive 2 letters from the neighbors. Actually, the application that you have in front of you is exactly the same as what was previous in 2015. However, I will say that we did bring down the height. It was at 899, it's now 895, and our FSI was brought down 0.04, it's at 0.74 now. The order to comply and the safe work order has been removed. Order to comply, obviously, it's because it's no longer considered an additional alteration, it's now considered a new home built. So the variances that you have in front of you, you know, it is, the house that we are proposing is very characteristic to the neighboring property and homes within it on that street and behind. So what we're proposing, the side yard setbacks are going to be, because now that good portion of that south wall has been removed, so now that variance comes into play. However, it is exactly the same as what it is today, or sorry, as what it was when it was existing prior to the full south wall buckling. So again, the home is characteristic to the neighborhood. We have had structural engineers now come in. Shoring will be done to this property. It's unfortunate, you know, through the pandemic, the owners are in China, and, you know, between financial constraints, travel constraints, again, this brings us here today. So if there's any questions that you would like me to address, I'm open for them.
Thank you very much. Panel, any questions for the agent? Seeing none, we'll move to the first speaker.
Oh, Mr. Chair, the first speaker is just registered to watch, but I don't believe that they're speaking.
Okay, great. Thank you. There is no speaker, so if there's no questions of the agent, then we will take it into committee. Thoughts and comments? Peter?
Thanks, Chair. I think that this is pretty reasonable rebuild. I think it's in line with other reconstructions of smaller houses that are happening, and it's not pushing significantly deeper or taller than other recent builds. And just looking at the variances themselves, they are, I think by most measures, very small. So I think it's worth supporting, and I'll move a motion to approve with no conditions.
Thank you. Seconder? Yim? All in favor? Unanimously approved. You have your approval, ma'am. Number 16, 235 Browning Avenue. We have before us a copy of plan of survey, site plan, floor plans, and elevations. A covering letter from the agent dated January 5th, and some drawings from the agent dated January 4th. We have 17 form letters in support signed by the owners of and occupants of 178, 181, 185 Goff Avenue, 211, 212, 213, 221, 223, 225, 228, 231, 232, 233, 236, 237, 234 Browning Avenue, and 810 Pape Avenue. We do have one correspondence in opposition from 220 Browning Avenue. So, do we have the agent on the line? We do. Um, Stephanie LeBlanc? Hello?
Hello?
Oh, pardon me, Stefan.
Yeah, hello, this is Stefan LeBlanc. Yeah, I'm the agent, the applicant for the project.
Your
My address
address?
is 550 Queen Street East,
Great.
Unit G121, Toronto, Ontario.
Thank you. Do we have someone registered, no, to speak in opposition? No.
Mr. Chair, we have somebody registered in interest.
Of interest? So, just in interest, so, I wonder, Stefan, if we could, have a short, quick presentation.
Stefan, you've muted yourself.
Hello?
Stefan, you keep muting yourself.
Can you hear me?
Ah, there you go.
Not sure. Okay. Okay. Good afternoon, members, committee, Mr. Chairman. So the first thing I want to say is that I think there's a bit of confusion, but this project is being done in tandem with the semi-detached neighbor as well, 233 Browning. They have a hearing date on January 26th, so we're considering both of these semi-detached houses and designing it together. What we're applying for is essentially to allow the addition of a third floor to these two-story dwellings. We're asking for an increase in the height limit and an increased floor area to allow for that to happen. The height limit that we're applying for is 10 meters, and that is corresponds to the height limits of the properties that are nearby. This section of Browning Avenue that we're in, it's about a half block long, happens to have a different zoning than most of the other houses around it. To the west on Browning Avenue, on Gough Avenue, on Pape Avenue, all have a zoning allowance of 10 meters. Where we are happens to be on the other side of the old East York municipal property line, and as such we have an East York zoning that only allows a height limit of 8.5 meters. So the request to have 10 meters comes from looking around at the other houses around it. And because of that, we feel like this application wouldn't be out of place with the overall context. In addition to that, just sticking within our own zoning, within the same East York zoning area, there's a number of precedents that have been allowed over the last few years that have permitted taller heights to allow specifically third floor additions on houses that are very similar to what we have here. I've listed those in the cover letter and shown images of some of those projects. And then the other thing as well is that we want to kind of highlight is that we have received a significant amount of community support for the applications. The homeowners of this house have gone and have spoken to many of the neighbors, sent letters, knocked on doors. And as you can tell, we've got 17 letters of approval posted on the website. We've got 2 more that came in late and haven't been able to be posted. That's for 216 Browning and 229 Browning. And those letters include the 2 immediate neighbors on the left and the right of the house. They include also 11 of the houses on the south side of Browning that have the same zoning. So 11 of 20 houses are in support of this project. There is one letter of concern, and we do appreciate their feedback, and I could speak to their issues about them as well. And again, I think they've mentioned that this house is too small, too narrow to be allowed a height that we're requesting. And but I think the important thing to remember is that we're not doing it as a single house. We're treating the 2 semi-detached houses together. As for the zoning height that we're asking for, we're referring to the buildings that are just to the south of us on Pape Avenue and on Browning Avenue that are all at least 10 meters, if not taller. As for, they also have a concern with the floor space index that we're asking for. We're asking for 1.03, where we're typically allowed 0.75. Part of that is also, we don't have a big lot, so we're at 1.03 still only gives us a 157 square meter house, or just shy of 1,700 square feet. It's also noted that in the precedents that we've shown, there's a number of projects that have been approved up, for 1.13 or 1.26 FSI on similar sized projects. The other thing I want to just mention is that we are aware of the impact this would have on the street wall, and we've been trying to design the addition to at least correspond to the sort of rhythm of the street. And that's one of the reasons we prepared those additional renderings, trying to keep just the width of the dormer as the front wall that you would see from the street. We've kept the main roof line of the ground floor consistent with the other buildings, and also trying to keep this as sort of keep the rhythm of the street at least consistent. I think that covers what I've had to say, so I'll yield to your questions if you have any.
Thank you. Panel, any questions? Oh, sorry, Carl?
Yes, I applaud the fact that you're doing it with the adjacent owner, which is great, because when I first reviewed this, I wasn't aware until I got to your covering letter, and if this was a standalone, I would have real concerns. Even doing it with the attached semi, I personally have difficulties with the street wall. The area is really consistent. There are kind of two-story buildings for the most part with pitched roofs and dormers, and it's quite a uniform character. I think the third floor addition, to be acceptable, needs to be set back. The fact that it extends directly up from the second floor, and as you indicate on your perspective drawing, it really does look out of place on this street, in my view. So I suppose I would be anxious to have, like the one that was just there, although they're both set back from the front, whereas I believe yours goes straight up from the second story. I have real concerns with this application, and as it's currently configured, I won't be able to support it.
Okay, I think that was a comment.
Can I respond to that, or is that just a comment?
Well, Mike, it was more of a question to see if you had considered pushing back the third floor. You must have, and there must be a reason why you didn't do that.
We did consider it. I mean, one personally, from my own sort of aesthetic, the other precedents that we've shown, they've set back the third floor, but what's added onto the third floor is incongruous with what's happening on the ground, on the lower two levels. So keeping that front dormer for us was trying to keep because looking at this image right now, this seems a little bit jumbled to us, and the thought that we had is that we extend the dormer line across to the, and bring that straight up, it would appear a little bit more consistent. It does have an impact on the street front, but looking at this project on Aldrich, 85 and 87 Aldrich, they've gone 3 stories and essentially have kind of crept the front wall. So that the reason for it,
that one, the dormer is much narrower, and yours the dormer is quite wide.
They've gone dormers on,
yeah. Okay, fair enough.
Okay, thank you. Any further questions of the agent? Do we have someone online, Brandon?
Mr. Chair, we have a person registered in interest, Remo Bruzzese. You've been unmuted. You can go ahead.
Hello.
Yeah. Hi.
Hi. State your name and address, please.
Remo Bruzzese, 224 Browning Avenue.
Okay. You have 5 minutes if you need it.
So I'm an interested party. I live on the other side. So my question is, you mentioned that if one person would only do it, Carl, you were saying you would have concern versus the 2 people doing it. What are the concerns if only one of them does it?
My concern is with compatibility with the existing built fabric on the street. So I normally, when we have an addition or an alteration to a semi-detached, we try to ensure that the alteration, if it's a vertical extension, is compatible with the attached semi. So what I was saying was, if this was happening just with half of the semi, if you only did that with half of the semi, I think the negative impact of the addition, I think, would be larger, and I would have difficulty with that. Even with the 2 half semis here, I still have difficulty with seeing that as compatible with the existing streetscape. That's my view.
So when you're saying impact from a visual aspect, not from a construction mechanical, of safety. So if one of them would do it, because imagine they get approved and then the other neighbor doesn't decide to do it, even if they're done in conjunction and they're in separate hearing, would you object even if you do the setback? Would it be okay if one of them do it, or that would always have to be done in pairs because there's a long street of houses here, right? Like there's other people. How do you see the future on that strip?
I don't think that that's something that I should be commenting on. I'm commenting on what we have before us, and I was commenting that I thought that the fact that this was being undertaken with an attached semi was commendable, but that I still have some concerns with the impact, the visual impact on the existing fabric of the street. In terms of what would happen if somebody else did something else on the street, I don't think it's appropriate for me to be speaking about that.
Okay. Sorry, it's my first time here. I'm just trying to understand, are we going to do these things like, let's say in the future this happens again, is it going to be things done in pairs, or a single semi-detached person can do it on the street? Because we're setting a precedence of how that gets done in all that stretch. I'm just trying to see how the curb appeal would translate. Is it going to be always done in pairs, or or one can be done as a single house?
I don't think.
And I think that shouldn't we?
Again, I just want to intervene. I don't think the panel can speculate on what might or might not be being brought forward in the future for the street.
Okay.
We're just dealing with the application that's in front of us.
The second thing that I would like to just understand is, in terms of height, the 10 meters, is it the same height of all the, it was mentioned, it's exactly the same height as all the other houses after, correct? Like the ones that are a bit more before Browning towards the center. They're all the same height of 10 meters.
Yeah, I think what we'll do is we'll let the agent come back on and respond to that.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. All right, Mr. LeBlanc.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yep.
Yeah, I'm not muted. Okay. Yeah, we to respond to Mr. Bruzzesi's question, the houses that are to the west on Browning and the ones that are to the south on Gough are all allowed to do 10 meters, and that's the height that they're typically built in. And I think when the person manning the screen was showing some of the street views, you can see how those walls go. You know, some of them they do have a roof on the third floor, but they go up quite tall relative to where these houses are. So 10 meters is what those height limits are, and most of those houses are built at least to 10 meters.
Okay. Anything further? Mr. LeBlanc, I thought I heard you say that the adjoining semi proposal, while not before us today, is scheduled for later this month. Is that what you had said?
That's correct. It's scheduled for the 26th of January.
Is that just coincidence, or did you deliberately want to keep them apart, or would you?
No, it just in terms of the application process, it went to two different people who took longer to process it. So we just got our different hearing dates.
And they're two separate owners.
They're two separate owners. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. All right, panel. Sorry, sir.
I was going to suggest something. I mean, we were just talking to. I'm just corresponding with the owner as well. If I don't know how the committee would vote for this or not, but we offer something. If the committee was to reject this, I would ask if we can maybe get the question about the setback at the third floor and how far we can go. That might be something that's open, but the owners would want to take a look at what that means. So there's a possibility. So I don't know if instead of getting a straight rejection, if that's the way it would go, is there some way to defer this application? I don't know if that's possible. If that's the where it's going.
The committee can defer if it thinks that that's a reasonable approach to address any of the concerns. But why don't we take it into committee and we'll have a discussion.
Yeah, definitely, because I don't think we have started the discussion yet.
No, we haven't. Let's go into committee.
Yeah.
Comments, observations, thoughts?
Okay, I have one thought. I do not have the same problem Kyle has, and I do believe that it is looking a little bit odd, but I think that with the new development, I think it's still a reasonable proposal, especially if the other semi also get approved. And I think it is a reasonable addition. That's my.
Okay, Peter?
I agree with Yim. I don't mind it, but my main concern is I think this has been designed as a pair of houses, right? It's basically reading as one large dormer. My main concern is that if one of these sides gets approved and the other one doesn't, then I think that's not, I don't think that's going to be a great situation. I think that's an undesirable outcome. So that's my main concern. I don't know if there's a way, but I really think that these deserve to be heard together rather than separately.
Yeah, I agree with Peter, because that's usually the case, and then because it really, you cannot read one without the other ones together. And if the applicant is willing to defer, maybe defer it at the same time as next hearing on the 26th. I mean, I don't know. This is only a suggestion. It's not whether it's possible or not.
I mean, then we get into the adjacent owner having their case deferred, because I don't think technically they can do that in time, right?
We get into kind of a leapfrogging kind of thing on applications, which they don't line up very well.
Well, I don't understand. I think the applicant said at the outset there's some confusion. And when I read it, I thought, this is an application for two houses. How come? And then, but there isn't a second application. I didn't understand why we had two houses on the one application. I'm sitting on the 26th. I don't know whether any of you are sitting there. So almost, are you sitting, Larry?
Yes, I think I am.
I am
as well.
Peter?
I don't know if I am. I'm looking at my schedule.
But it'd almost be the same panel, so we wouldn't.
I actually am on the 26th. Okay.
But Don, Peter, I think there are two panels on the 26th, no?
Oh, possibly.
Yeah, I do not think we are on the same panel, but there are two.
Oh, I see.
I'm with Don and Larry. I think Peter is on something else, the other panel.
Peter and I are on the other panel.
Okay.
I don't imagine we know which panel this supplementary application would be on. I guess we don't know.
So
We're just trying to check it out, Don. It's a very creative thought.
So can we ask Silvio?
Yeah, she's looking it up.
Happened?
She's looking it up now.
Because we usually have these applications together.
That's a good
Through you,
suggestion.
Mr. Chair, we've already done the mail out for the January 26th, and we are almost finished February 9th.
So,
We suggest that putting us, the same people, on one panel. The other panel consists of new people.
and I don't know if we can necessarily presuppose what an outcome for a discussion could or should be, but it is an interesting idea. I don't think we can defer this to have it marry up with another application unless it happens several months down the road because of the way the process has worked.
So why don't we ask the applicant, Mr. Applicant?
Hold on a second, Don. He's muted.
Okay.
Yeah, we can get the applicant back on. We're just looking the scheduling as we speak.
Hello, yeah, I'm here now.
Okay,
Yeah.
Don?
Yeah, we don't understand and I think you expressed this opinion at the outset, we don't understand why this application wasn't together with 233. And 233 is scheduled for the 26th. We're all sitting on the 26th, but not necessarily on the same panel. And that doesn't really matter. What matters is that the two applications be heard together, I think. So, but the applications, the notices for January 26th have gone out. So this would, if you wanted to marry them up, but it would have to be deferred, I don't know, maybe the end of February or March or something. Is that something you might be amenable to?
That does push it back quite far down the line. And we would have loved to have these go together, but they're two separate applications because they're two separate owners, and the city requires us to submit them that way. And I sent them into the city at the same time. It just got processed differently, and we received the two separate dates. I've noticed in today's hearing that a number of these semi-detached that are combined have actually been able to go together, and especially the Montrose Avenue one, which I'm wondering how they were able to do that.
Well, but we usually hear if they are done together. We usually hear them together. But you're the applicant for both?
I am. Yep.
Yeah. I don't know how they got separated.
Neither do I. I don't know.
Okay, so do we have any, Sylvia, any further information on scheduling for the 26th?
So the application that's going forward on the 26th, if you want these to be handled concurrently at the same hearing, they both would have to be deferred.
Right.
And then rescheduled together. I mean, looking at the second application for next hearing, the numbers are quite apart. So they are not concurrent numbers, so they came in quite separately through Committee of Adjustment for whatever the reason.
Right. So Don, to your point, if you wanted to try and defer and line them up, it might be some time down the road, which I imagine the owner might be somewhat concerned about.
Can I pipe in here? Can you still hear me?
Yes.
Yeah,
please.
I'm just talking to the owner. They says they would be okay with deferring it if it allows for them to be heard together and give them a better chance.
Okay, that's helpful. Thank you. All right, then maybe I think what we're all hearing is that it probably would benefit the owner and anyone having an interest in this application to have them heard concurrently. So that implies a deferral, and it sounds like the owner is comfortable with a deferral to line them up with the adjacent semi. So, Carl?
Could I ask one other question? I raised the concern about the third floor not being stepped back, and the applicant quite generously indicated that he and his client would be prepared to examine that. They're not committing to it, but they'd be prepared to examine and see if that had any merit. I'm wondering if they're being deferred to a later date, if that examination might be part of that deferral. Not holding to any firm decision, but if they were prepared to look at setting back the third floor when it came back, I certainly think that's worth investigating.
Yes, we would do that.
Okay, that sounds good. So I'm going to go back into committee, and I'll look for a motion.
So I would like to make a motion to defer this matter to be heard with 233 Browning Avenue, which is scheduled at this time for a hearing on January 26th, 2022. And the deferral is also to give the applicant an opportunity to consider setting the third story back somewhat. Yeah,
Okay.
that's mine.
Thank you. Second that. Carl?
Yep.
Carl seconds it. All in favor? Okay, sounds like a plan, sir. You have a deferral to hopefully, and I know city staff will try and figure out a way to line the two proposals up so that they're heard at the same time in the future. Thank you. Okay, we move on to item number 17, 211 Simmington Avenue. And we have a copy of a plan of survey, site plan, floor plans, and elevation. We have supplementary presentation materials, and we have some opposition, one letter of opposition. So, do we have the agent on the line? We do. Mr. Stickney, are you there?
I'm here, sir.
You could give us your name and your address, please?
Yes, David Stickney, 149 Lowther Avenue, Toronto.
Great. We do have someone here to in opposition, so we'd appreciate a short presentation if you would.
Sure. Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, the proposal is to construct a 3-story triplex and laneway suite on the subject property. It's on the east side of Simmington Avenue. A street is predominantly 2- and 3-story dwellings. It's well served by transit, I've noted in my submission. We're within 800 meters of 2 subway stations, Dundas West and Lansdowne, as well as the GO Union Pearson station at Perth Avenue and Bloor. There's a Symington bus that comes from Dundas West Station and goes directly up Symington and through to Weston Loop. I would comment on the dwelling units themselves. We're proposing 3 2-bedroom apartments in the main body building, and each has a ancillary space in the basement. It's a kind of a COVID play space or workspace, since we're all working at home these days. And they have their private green space at the roof level. There are some variances required for the approval of this, and I would like to go through, I'll try and group them somewhat. In terms of variance 1, 2, and 9, these are landscape variances. One is just a percentage of green space in the rear yard. One's a percentage of green space on the laneway itself, which really can't be changed because we're proposing the 2 parking spaces. Our parking requirement is 0, but we want to maintain two spaces. And the other is for soft landscaping in the rear yard. I would comment that with the green space on the roof of the building and for the rear yard, we're actually increasing the amount of green space on the property from what it is today. In terms of setbacks, variance 3 and 4, the front yard setback, we actually comply with the main body of the building, and if the committee has been to the subject property, the house that's there has had a closed front porch in front, and what we're doing is proposing that we maintain the ground floor projection to the extent that building that has been there for 100 years. So at the ground floor level, we do not comply with the average setback, but the main building itself does. We are proposing 3 dwelling units. If we were proposing 2 dwelling units, our required side yard setbacks would comply. It's when one goes to a triplex or 4-plex that the side yard setbacks increase. I would also comment that on the south side ground level, the side yard setback is 1.1 meters, which in terms of the depth of the building, again, because of the projection of the front, which is just replicating the existing front porch, the depth goes beyond because of that projection. And if it were a duplex or a triplex, we would comply at all other levels of the building. So excuse me. In terms of the height of the building, we do comply with the height, with, save and except, the access to the roof. And in a separate proposal that is very similar to this, the condition was that the side yard elevations prevail because only the access to the roof, which includes a stairwell and an elevator, is permitted to go beyond the permitted height. Otherwise, we do comply. So if the committee sees fit, the suggestion is that the condition apply to the side elevations to limit the exceeding of height to the access to the roof. In terms of the FSI, I've noted in my submission that the houses certainly across the street are all in a range where we're talking about here. I would further acknowledge that there are decisions very recently of the committee at 213 Rankin for 1.21 and at 168 Lappin. 168 Lappin was a pair of semis that are 1.63 and 1.33 with an average density of 1.48. I think the variance for 1.18 is well under the previous decisions in the immediate neighborhood. In terms of the main walls, they're permitted to be 9.5. We're a matter of inches or centimeters, if you like, over. We're permitted to be 9.5, and we're asking 10.2. We're against, at an existing setback, we're against a blank wall to the north. The variance for the laneway suite is essentially you're permitted to have a dormer of 1/3 of the face of the building, and side yard setbacks apply to it. It just works on a convenient access to the second floor to have the dormer aligned at one side where the access is, so that one can have proper access and entrance to the laneway suite rather than having it in the center. And just on the very last variance, I would say that again, we do comply. It's a 43886, an old bylaw for the 11th variance. We do comply with the height, again, save and accept the access to the roof.
Okay,
That's my submission, Mr. Chairman.
thank you very much. Panel, questions? Yim?
Yes, I have a question, because I have heard that you have mentioned that you're going to add some green space on the roof. When I look at your roof plan, it does not indicate any green space. It's open space. I can notice, but this doesn't say that there's green space. Are you suggesting a green roof or?
A good question. I mean, we would not qualify as a green roof because what we actually would like to have is green space surrounding a patio of barbecue and chairs, table.
But it's not indicated on your roof plan. How do we know that there will be green space?
Well, simply that we want green space. I mean, if the stipulation of the committee was to make green space, we'd be in favor, absolutely. The difficulty that we have to put condensing units for each of the unit air conditioners on their own spaces. So the roof would be divided, privacy screened, and planters. So if there was a percentage
No, you misunderstood me. I'm not asking for your detail, but since you have mentioned it, I just like to follow up with what you mentioned. But I do not see that you have that proposed. That's all.
Don?
Yeah, I want to ask the applicant, that you mentioned space in the basement for an office. I imagine it's individual spaces for each unit.
That's correct.
I imagine it's also included in the FSI.
If it's ancillary to a dwelling unit above, it is not calculated as FSI. And certainly the appeal of the units themselves is that there is space available. If you have to work at home, it allows for someone to work at home. If you need play space at home, it actually works for, but it is ancillary to a unit above, to not be counted as FSI.
Okay, thank you.
Carl?
You have a privacy screen. If we could go to the roof garden, the terrace plan for a second. You have a privacy screen proposed along one side at the top there, 5-foot privacy screen, but then there's nothing on the opposite side. Can you clarify what you're proposing there?
If the stipulation was for privacy screens on both sides, we would certainly agree with that. It's just for sunlight penetration, I guess, to where we were imagining planters on the roof space.
So alternatively, planters could operate as a screen, correct? So was that what you were proposing on the other side?
Yes, the planters, we have to generically show the building code safety requirement of a guardrail. If it were to be privacy screen, it provides a similar thing, but the idea is that planters would go down both sides of the roof from front to back.
So your alternative, rather than what the 5-foot privacy screen that you've got here, you're saying what you would prefer is to have a planted screen on both sides of the roof. Am I reading you correctly?
I would suggest that a privacy screen on both sides is probably the safest condition, because it maintains both the guardrail requirement and the privacy requirement, and the landscape architect would elaborate as to the size and weight of the planters and the amount of planting along both sides.
Okay, so you wouldn't have difficulty with the condition that required a 5-foot privacy screen on both sides of the outdoor patios?
Absolutely not.
Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Any further questions? We do have a couple speakers waiting to come on. Okay, why don't we bring them on?
Mr. Chair, the next speaker is Dominique Salin. Dominique, you've been unmuted. You can go ahead.
Hello.
Yeah, you good.
Dominic, are you speaking as well? Is it your wife as well?
Yeah, my wife, I think, submitted the written response. So I believe you guys received that document and came a little late.
Okay, are you both speaking this morning?
Yeah, so Dominique Asselin, we are owners of 209 Simmington Avenue, the house directly south. I've heard, corporations buying up properties and doing stuff with them, but I didn't think I'd be fighting the one right beside me. I think if you look at the proposal, everything is larger than the variances suggest, and I think it's a little disingenuous to say that the enclosed front porch would just be the variances for the enclosed front porch would just be in line with what's there currently. The enclosed front porch that's been there for 100 years is 1 story high. They want to bring the whole building out 3 stories in the front. In addition, I think, you know, I think he was talking about livable space being 1.2 for, had been approved in areas around there. One of them I think was Rankin, which isn't too far off. The other one is Lappin. Lappin's in another, like it's another community. It's another city, sorry for my French, but it's not even in the area. So I think it's a little disingenuous to use those as examples. Now, in the variances, it specifies that the north lot line and the south lot line are both going to be set back, I think 0.06 meters, or 46, sorry, from the property. Now, the plans show something different, and I think they specify that it's different. If the variance to the south is this, I think it can be problematic because we have a 2-story bay window that runs up basically at the lot line. And if the main entrance to the house is on the south side, it's not really going to leave a lot of clearance for people to get through and move in. So it would be nice to have clarification on whether or not they're putting 1.5 meters in there, or if it's going to be 0.5 meter, because it will make a big difference in terms of you know, access to their property and potential problems with our property. In addition, I don't want to go through every single variance, but all of these variances reduce the green space. And, you know, like I'm worried about runoff from rainstorms and overland flooding to our home and domicile. So, I mean, like, I don't really know where to start because to me they're all egregious, and they basically want to put an apartment building beside us. So, you know, I understand that, like, we need room for housing and for other people, but to me, this is ridiculous. Sorry, I'll try to go back to my original list that my wife put together. So, I mean, the height, and I think you guys tried to address this with the privacy screen. We have a 2-story building. We have skylight to our bathroom on the 2nd story. So having people entertained on the 4th story right beside us could be a little disconcerting when you're taking a shower or trying to use the toilet. You know, but, you know, I don't know what to say. It's, you know, it's privacy and light. I think that covers my concerns, which is basically all of the variances. Is there anything you wanted to add? No, I think that's it for us.
Okay, great, thank you very much. Panel, any questions of the speaker? Nope, none? Okay, Mr. Stickney. Mr. Stickney, are you there?
I'm here.
Okay, do you want to respond to those concerns?
Yes. I mean, I would indicate that the that the porch projection at the front is only 1 story high in this proposal. We're trying to simply replicate the porch. The required setback is the average of the 2 adjacent dwellings, and the entire building above the porch form, or the projected ground floor, complies with the front yard setback. I would note, in terms of concept of flooding and drainage, is that any building constructed on this site would require a grading plan by the City of Toronto standards, and there is a slightly lower backyard at the moment that would be corrected so that all stormwater generated would be either absorbed by the green space or run to the street. So there's actually less danger of flooding by redeveloping the site. I would note again that we did defer to the bay window that's on the south side by putting a 1.1 meter setback on that side at the ground level. And I would also note that it's not an apartment building. The permitted uses in this area, even though an apartment building is permitted, but the defined uses are single-family detached, duplex, triplex, and fourplex, all permitting a laneway suite, which is the category that we are in. And again, I would repeat that if we were a duplex, if we eliminated one unit, we would comply with all our side yard setbacks. So I'm simply looking at it from the standpoint of context of neighborhood and proximities to everything, that the additional dwelling unit, as many of the people on the west side have done, is added a dwelling unit to the upstairs and a dwelling unit to the basement. I mean, it's essentially what the standard for the street is, and it's 3 stories.
Okay, thank you, Mrs. Sig. Just a quick question. So did you or the owner have any discussions with the adjacent or surrounding neighbors on this proposal, or was it just through notice?
I have had discussion with several people on a casual basis, because I've been there several times. The owners have had similar discussions, but we haven't, nothing's been submitted with the exception of this letter, which planning had no problem, the works department had no issue, so we just left it at the notice at that point.
Okay, thank you. Panel, any further questions? Carl?
Could I just get a little clarification on the entrance to the building? I think it's unfortunate that there isn't a street entrance, which is the normal situation where and I know it's a planning principle to have lively streets where the buildings open onto the street. Do I have it correct that, I'm not sure I'm reading your drawings correctly, I'm on drawing number, it's actually the site plan, ground floor plan. And am I correct that all entrance to the building occurs either, that's an elevator that's beside the stairway, I believe.
Correct.
That all entrance to the building occurs at either that elevator or the stair, or exits from the stair at the back, so that the 1/2 of the side yard is basically the main entrance route into the building?
That's correct.
Has there been any consideration given to setting back the stairway and the elevator to provide a bit more crush space there? Because I think as the owner next door indicated, there is space requirements. People are moving in and moving out, and as refuge is taken from the building and left at the street, it seems a bit tight there where that is the main entrance to the building, and I'm wondering if there's something about this that I'm not seeing.
Well, the elevator is recessed, I believe, by 0.35 meters. I suspect that the stair could be recessed to the same extent.
Would you recommend that? I think that makes sense.
Yes. Yes.
And you have the canopy that goes just over where the elevator is, or does the canopy go over the stair and the elevator?
Over the stair and the elevator, sir.
Okay.
Okay.
Fine, thank you.
Thank you. Anything further? Okay, we'll go into committee. Comments? I just have the one, and I'll just throw it. It's what Carl was referring to there. Yeah, I know this street. It's residents on both sides. It's fairly tight urban form. This will be a tall building if it was approved with the addition of the rooftop terrace. I am concerned about privacy and overlook, but also concerned about noise, particularly in a unit that has three separate units that will be using the rooftop as amenity space. And I would just think that not only should we have screening, but I think we need to encourage or put something in with respect to, as Jim pointed out, landscaping or some sort of something up there that would mitigate sound travel, because sound does really travel significantly on tall buildings in this kind of a neighborhood. So I just throw that out there for consideration. Jim?
Yes, I do have a comment about, I looked through all the variances. The only thing really bothers me on this one is the height. Because if you even put a 1.5 privacy screen, it will increase. It's already exceeding the permitted by 4.2 meter. If you add 1.5 meter, it's actually exceeding almost 5.71 meter, which is more than 50% of what is allowed. And I do not consider this minor, plus the use of the rooftop. They indicated that there's landscape, but it's not indicated there as if you approve it. And also, I think even if you put privacy screen, it should be set back, way set back by about a meter. And don't forget, they have also the roof access stair, plus the elevator, which is higher than even the roof line. And I think it does impact the next door neighbor tremendously. And I cannot support the height of this proposal, sorry.
Okay, thank you. Other comments? Peter?
I agree. I think that the height is pushing it. But I think that as a whole, this application's a really positive, a positive development, I think, and you know, having an elevator included, I think, for accessibility purposes, and having good sized units, and then that kind of flex space in the basement. I think these are all smart things that neighborhoods need. And I think the rooftop is a positive thing too, having, you know, dedicated space for these units. So I do agree that the height, I don't have problems with the height of the building, because the elevator and the stairs really are pushed to the middle. I think that's a smart design approach, but I do think the fences would need to be pushed in away from the outsides to lessen that impact. But as a whole, I support this.
Thank you. Anyone else? Carl?
I'm not concerned with the height of the fence overpowering the street, because it's up from the grade. It's 3 stories up, and I don't think that that's going to be an issue. I'm very much on side with Larry's point about noise. The issue here is I don't think there has been an adequate assessment given how to buffer that top deck from the neighbors, both visually and audibly. I'm also concerned with the entrance at the side, and its potential problems with the adjacent neighbor. The idea of pushing the stair back makes all the sense in the world. Frankly, the actual proposal, I think, is reasonable, and I support that. I'd be inclined to suggest a deferral here so that more attention could be given to how the rooftop deck can be treated to both provide visual and audible privacy, and to also reconfigure the side entrance so that it has less impact on the adjacent neighbors. I'm uncomfortable approving it with maybe you should push the fence back, or you should put a tree this high. That's not what we're here to do. I think we know the problem. What we need here is a solution. So I'm leaning towards a deferral to allow the applicant to actually put proposals forward for those 2 areas.
Thanks, Carl. Don?
Well, I agree with Carl. It's not up to us to advise the applicant how to design. building. I like this application, but I don't disagree with Carl and Ian and Peter and you about the problems with it. And perhaps a deferral is a good idea. I ordinarily feel that a deferral always costs the applicant money, because time is money when you have own a building, etc. But rather than refuse it, I think we're better off asking for a deferral with our recommendations as to the issues that we found, and ask the applicant to try and address them.
Great, thanks. And I'll just say, and I sort of agree with Peter. This is actually a very desirable type of development. Bring in needed resident or rental in an area which is proximate to high order transit. So I think it's a good idea in total. But the idea of getting, I am concerned about the rooftop terrace, as I think everyone else is, and it doesn't seem to satisfy what we think it needs to be an appropriate development. So I'll need a motion. Carl?
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to move that the application be deferred to allow the applicant to propose a suitable auditory and visual privacy mechanism for the rooftop deck, and to adjust the side entrance to be less invasive to the adjacent owner. I'm not sure those are the correct words, but that's the best I can come up with. Basically, I don't want us to play designer for this gentleman. As Dawn indicated, we've identified two problems. I think the deferral gives the applicant the opportunity to come back with some solutions to those issues.
Okay, do we have a seconder to that? Peter? Okay, all in favor of a deferral?
I wanted to make a comment about the motion. Carl, I don't think we should say for the owner to adjust. I think we should say for the owner to consider adjustments to because
that's
again,
fine.
We're telling him what to do, and that's not our role, I don't think.
That's a good point, I agree.
Yeah, okay. So
Have we got that, folks? Yep, we've got it. Okay. Seconded by Peter, all in favor? Okay, the application is deferred. Thank you. Okay, number 18, 75 Homestead Avenue. We have before us a copy of plan of survey, site plan, floor plans, and elevations. Copy of plan of survey, revised site plans, floor plan, and elevation. We have 7 photographs, a covering letter from the applicant, and parking pad permit from the applicant. We have staff reports from Urban Forestry. So do we have the agent on the line?
Yes, hi, I'm here. My name is Kumar Senthil Kumaran, and I'm the agent, and my address is 1075 Jetland Place, Oakville.
Great, thank you. Just hang on a sec. So, panel, do we think we need a presentation on this application? Seeing no, so we don't need an application, or sorry, don't need a presentation on this application. Would you care to add anything before we take this application into committee?
I'm good with it. The only item that I would say is the last variance, which is the parking spot, which we have already applied and obtained the permit, as you can see with the supporting documents.
Okay, thanks very much. Okay, panel, comments or a motion? Yim? Yim, you're muted.
Okay, yeah, I I have only one suggestion. If I move for approval, is to tie it to the ground floor plan because of the enclosed front porch. That, yeah, it will limit to how much they can extend. With that condition, I like to move for approval, and because I will consider the variance as a minor.
I think there's a forestry condition.
Yeah, forestry condition 1, 2.
Just two.
Just
1 and 2. Oh, just 2?
Just
Okay.
two.
That's two.
Okay, we have a motion and a seconder.
I second the motion.
Don, all in favor? You have your approval. Thank you.
Through you, Chair, that was tied to the site plan? Was it the site plan?
Was it to the site plan, Yim?
Is it the site plan or the ground floor plan? I'm not too sure. Okay, let me see. Do they have a site plan? I'm so, yeah. To the site plan, yes.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. All right, we move to number 19, 50 Russell Hill Road. Panel has in front of it copy of the plan of survey, site plan, floor plans, and elevations. Presentation material from the applicant. We have staff reports from Forestry and TRCA, and we have one form letter of support from 54 and 56 Russell Hill Road. Do we have the agent on the line? We do. Mr. Andre.
Yes, good afternoon.
Good
Mr.
afternoon.
Chairman, members of the committee, can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Your name and address?
Ian Andres, I'm with Goodman's LLP, the solicitor for the owner and applicants, Anthony and Erica Coco. My address, 333 Bay Street, Suite 3400, Toronto.
Great, thanks very much. Panel, do we need a presentation on this application? I'm seeing a lot of shaking heads. Mr. Andre, is there anything you would like to share with us or emphasize before we go into committee?
Mr. Chairman, I would just emphasize that our client worked extensively with TRCA staff to make sure that the stable top of bank matters were appropriately addressed. Planning staff have no issues, and our client did reach out to the neighbors as well. And I'm not aware of anyone articulating opposition to the committee today. So we believe the variances respect the four tests and respect and reinforce the existing neighborhood character. Happy to go into more detail if you'd like, but that's basically the summary.
Great, thank you. Panel, any questions of the applicant? None? Okay, we're in committee. Comments, motion? Carl?
Mr. Chairman, unless other people have concerns, I think this is a very straightforward application. As the applicant indicated, it supports the existing fabric in the area. I think it's a positive application. I don't see any negative implications to it. I'd like to move approval subject to forestry condition number 1.
Thank you. A seconder?
There's no forestry.
Sorry, we're...
Is it Roblin though, or is it?
We're just checking on the forestry condition, Carl. Sorry, hang on a sec.
Oh, it's a ravine condition, number 1,
Ravine
not forestry.
Okay.
Oh, I'm sorry.
All right. Moved by Carl, seconded. Peter, all in favor? You have your approval, sir. And item number 20 is 16 Roblin Road. We have in front of us plan of survey, site plan, floor plans, and elevations. We have a staff report from Urban Forestry, and we have one letter in opposition, no address given or no name given. So, do we have the agent on the line?
Yes, good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
My name is Grant, 14B Design Park Drive. I'm the agent.
Great, thank you. Hang on a sec. Panel, do we need a presentation on this one? No. I don't think we need a presentation, sir, but if you'd like to, is there anything you'd like to add before the committee considers your application?
No, I'm good.
You're good?
Yep.
Okay, thank you very much. Panel, do we have any comments or a motion? Peter?
Thanks, Chair. Looking at all of the variances, they are quite small, and I think this is a reasonable application in that it's similar to the established pattern of redevelopment area. So I move to approve this project, this application with no conditions.
Is there forestry?
Forestry number 1.
Forestry number
Beverly,
1.
this is forestry number 1.
Thank you.
Motion to approve. Do I have a seconder? Yim?
Yes.
All in favor? Your application is approved. Thank you very much. That concludes the morning session. I'm going to suggest to the panel that we take half an hour for lunch. Is that enough for everyone, or would you like to? Don, can you have lunch in half an hour?
I gotta check with the chef. But I think so.
Can we be back at 2:35? Is that fine with everyone?
Yep.
Okay. Thank you. Sorry, guys.